Coffee with Friends, where we're going to talk about this wonderful book that I co authored with Rosanna. As a reminder, before we begin, the guests on our live streams reflect a diverse set of values, morals, and ethics that may not reflect the morals, values, and ethics of the Misfit Amish. Coffee with Friends may also discuss trauma of all sorts to include all types of abuse. Viewers and listeners may find it unsettling and triggering. If this live stream causes you distress, please cease listening until you're able to listen again. You may also seek support from your trusted folks and qualified mental health professionals. With that being said, please welcome Rosanna to the show. Hello, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Well,
What's happening in your part of the world?
we didn't have snow today.
We did. Couple of inches.
A couple of inches.
Yep, like all good Mennonites and Amish, we had to talk about the weather.
Well, we got to start out properly by talking about the weather. And did you go to church today? I did not, but did you?
No.
I've been on an in-between Sunday for 21 years, so I just want everybody to know.
I'm on my, like, what? Third? Oh, no, it's about my fifth. Zip.
Well, I mean, we do what we must, right?
Yep.
Oh, I should probably explain what it. Wait, do you know what an in-between Sunday is?
Yeah. It's a
Oh,
Sunday you don't have church because the Mennonites are in the bill. No, that's right. That's the old order Mennonites. They have an in between Sunday where a different Mennonite group hops into their church.
oh,
So
well,
they trade off and on.
oh, that's what
Well,
your definition of in-between Sunday is?
yeah. See, like
No,
the Hornies might have the church one Sunday, and a Grockdale conference might have it the next.
see, we didn't. That's not what that was. Like we would have like in a settlement, you would have like this
Oh yeah.
different church districts, and then within like the old order Amish churches that I lived in, and all of the Amish churches I lived in, like we would have church every other Sunday. I know that there's some newer Amish churches that don't have church every other Sunday, but the Sunday we didn't have church, we called it in between Sunday.
Okay. What about like a lot of the times the old orders would go visiting that day.
We would go visiting sometimes. Sometimes you would go to somebody else's, like a different church district's
Uh,
church because like it was your relative or it was your friend or
mhm.
whatever, like somebody was there visiting, so you would show up. Well, when
Mm.
you had Fremde Brady Hall, when you had visiting preachers, like sometimes you would even have church on a Saturday instead.
Oh,
So it was
really?
like, oh yeah, like sometimes it was even on a Friday. Like we
Oh
we
my. That
we
sounds
were,
traumatizing. It's too much church.
but it was only every other week. Like
I
we
mean,
didn't
you're
go to
right.
church. We were like those Jehovah's Witnesses who were out there going to church every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and going out in field service. We weren't like that. We didn't do
Yeah,
all that.
but
That's a little too much. We know
that's
that Jehovah's Witnesses are just wrong.
no,
Oops.
that's denigrating to the Mennonites because they've got prayer meeting Wednesday nights. On Saturdays before communion, they've got council and preparatory services. So, like, you can't shame us Mennonites like that now once.
What are you talking about? I wasn't even talking about the
I
Mennonites.
know, but you said have the Jehovah's Witnesses going to church all the time. The Mennonites are just about as bad now once.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, it's not my fault that you took that shoe on as a Mennonite. Clearly, we're not
Um,
wrong. You are.
no, we're not wrong. You are. You don't go to church now.
Well, and y'all had church houses. We didn't have no church houses. What is this? What? How, how do you honor your martyrs appropriately if you have church houses?
Well, the martyrs went to church too. One
Mhm.
Sunday. a year they had to go to the Catholic Church or else get martyred.
But they would have their actual services in the cave. So,
Right.
how do
But
you
it's
honor
because they
your
were
martyrs
hiding. We don't have
appropriately?
to hide from the Catholics nowadays.
But we can still honor our martyrs appropriately. I don't know what's up with
We honor
this.
our martyrs by, buying stupid herbs and stuff, you know,
I thought it was buying
sacrificing
martyrs.
our bodies for the sake of avoiding, you know, doctors and chiropractors and people who are going to take your money.
Mm.
They just want our money,
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, really. All they want is the money. Those
All
doctors, there's just, they got to pay for their fancy college educations and all once.
Oh my God. You're
Now,
really
that's not,
saying
not
that?
swear. We Mennonites are really picky about that.
Maar God se bärmlich, was ist let's mit dich?
Well, ich bin bestimmt.
Okay.
All
To
right.
translate, I said the
You said,
equivalent of,
what's wrong with you?
I said God awful. God to bärmlich
Oh.
doesn't translate. Yeah, I feel like it loses value in translation, but that's
Yeah, it
just me.
does.
But it kind of loosely can mean god awful. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I said, what's wrong with you?
Got the bombly.
Gott erbärmlich.
That's a family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it just doesn't hit it with me.
Yeah. It's not quite the same. But anyway, so one of the things that I think is really important is for people, I get asked all the time, what's the difference between Amish and Mennonites? Have you ever been asked that question?
Yeah. Or somebody would assume that I'm Amish or, Catholic, also nuns, But yeah, I have been asked what's the difference between Amish and Mennonite.
So, do you think this book answers some of that question?
Yeah, it does.
I'm not saying that it answers all of that question. I'm saying it is literally answering some of that question. Because part of what people need to understand is that there are many different flavors of both Mennonites and Amish people,
Mhm.
and they have varying practices and different cultural norms depending on what type or what flavor you are. So, with that being said, this is specifically about your experience and my experience, and just kind of like talking about the things that we wanted to talk about, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I talk a lot about growing up Eastern, and I talk a little bit about like my dad's background, which would be old order Mennonite, horse and buggy, Stauffer Mennonite. However, I don't talk a lot about the other kinds of Mennonites because I don't have much experience with them. And so, yeah, my perspective is only of a segment of Mennonites. However, you probably have more experience with different groups of Amish than I do Mennonites, different groups of Mennonites.
Well, I mean, I did live in 5 different flavors of Amish communities. And
yeah, I only lived in, well, actually, I went to like 3 different Mennonite churches.
Oh, Rosanna, your accent is the thickest I've ever heard it.
Well, she can't tell when I'm putting it on now, can she, once? I'm pretty good at it.
Well, see, for me, I spend a lot of time trying to fly under the radar so that people can't tell that I have an accent that comes from that because I speak English as a second language. Because I also have people tell me whenever they figure out or they hear me speaking another language, they tell me to go back to my own country. And I'm like, make it make sense because I was born in America, fools. Like, please, can somebody make it make sense? Oh, Mark, dear Mark. Mark says, I love Lifetime movies about the Amish. Well, I invite you to read this book because, we're not wrong. The Mennonites are. That's
no. We're not wrong. you are.
No, we're not wrong. You are. You are wrong.
Well, I'll
So,
let you believe your little fantasy.
does that help you sleep at night?
Yeah.
Okay. Your moral superiority helps you sleep at night, but you were just talking about going to church and you're taking offense. I was saying we weren't like the Jehovah's Witnesses, like I'm
Yeah.
just saying. Oh my
And
God. Mark is over here to give you some crap. Mennonites try to have their cake and eat it too. Oh, shots
that's
fired.
No wonder I'm so chunky.
Well, let me tell you something. I just want everybody to know that in many ways, I think this book is also a continuation of the beef that Amish and Mennonites have had for over 330 years.
It's been a long time.
We've been beefing. Amish and Mennonites have been beefing for over 330 years, ever since the big split, where we formed definitive groups. And there's definitely specific cultural norms. I think if you read our book, you're going to understand a little tiny bit more about that, in my opinion. But I could be wrong.
Isn't it crazy how non-Mennonite, non-Amish people try to tell us how our lives are?
Well, like if they see a plain dressed person, like you're Mennonite, but you get called Amish, this is a stereotype.
And it's like nobody recognizes many Mennonites because the Amish are a little bit more countercultural, with their horse and buggies and stuff. However, people don't realize it's the same kind of people that drive horse and buggies are also some types of Mennonites. It varies. There's a lot more than one group of people that drive horse and buggy.
And while there's Mennonites that we call like institutional Mennonites, where they have brick and mortar colleges and they have educational institutions and they have all these other things, and
I don't know why we're talking about like the institution of behavioral health,
I'm just saying, like the Mennonite, there's like an alphabet soup of different types of Anabaptists, because there's also Brethren, there's Hutterites, there's oh my God, I can't even think of the name.
Old Brethren, German Brethren, Docker Brethren.
Yeah. And there's apostolic. Did you know that apostolic Pentecostals are also Anabaptists?
No, never heard of, not the Pentecostal ones. But
no, not regular Pentecostals, apostolic Pentecostals.
I'm not aware of a group like that. I have a friend that's apostolic, and they have like a seating section in their church like an old Mennonite church is. Like the men and women sit separately, but they've got like two groups of men. All the preachers sit up on the what you would call the singing bench or singer's bench. Very similar to the old German Baptist, and all the men wear black suits and white shirts for Sunday. So in a lot of ways, they're very similar to Mennonites, and I found it was quite intriguing.
Well, it goes back to show, like, just because somebody is plain doesn't mean they belong to a specific religious group. And I think that's one of the big things that I would really like dominant culture to understand better. Even when you're watching your Lifetime movies about the Amish, dear Mark, I invite you to please purchase this book. It releases tomorrow. You can pre-order it on Kindle today. Okay, like it's out there. Link in the show notes, because Mark, my loved ones have asked me for years to not watch any media generated by Lifetime about Amish people, because I have to stop the show or the movie, and then I have to be like, okay, well, here's the problem with this, and their outfits, like they show these like Little House on the Prairie outfits, and they're not even Amish outfits half the time. Like I have problems, but I digress. I
Yeah,
think, huh? What?
I saw an episode on Bull. If you've ever watched Bull, um, it's Michael Weatherly's show, where in which he pretends to be a lawyer. But anyway, or a psychologist who works with lawyers to help the case turn out in their favor. At any rate, they did a show about Mennonites, and it was so stupid. It was literally so wrong, and every single thing. I just about quit watching. Thankfully, there was no other session on Mennonites, but
I think I saw Law and Order. I saw some kind of crime TV episode about Mennonites, and I was like, I want to know what kind of Mennonites these were because they had the women playing dress, and then they had the women going into prison doing prison ministry. But it was like I'm sorry, hold up, like
not if
it
you
just.
drive horse and buggy.
And then they had like, well, we don't have electricity and we don't have this. And it was like, hold up. Like, I have questions about what flavor of Mennonite are you really trying to represent?
And like, it's not that hard to find a Mennonite and literally ask them, okay, what represents a real Lancaster County a Mennonite church of some denomination that we could put on TV? Maybe the Mennonites wouldn't do it, but I would. You pay me enough, I'll edit your scene to make it look appropriate. Sure.
Rosanna, are you saying that you'll take the money?
Yep, I'll take the money.
I'll
And
take
I'm
the
not
money
gonna let
too.
him get by with stupid. Well, okay, rarely you'll see a white horse pulling a buggy, but not two white horses pulling a black buggy with sparkly, shiny paint all over it, and in an inappropriate shape and whatnot. It was so bad. It was so bad, that episode.
I'm
Now
just going
people
to
are gonna go watch Bull just to see it, but
well, so anyways, so when we wrote this book, I think part of what I want to happen, what I would love to see happening, I would love for people to read it and to sit with it because there might be some very uncomfortable truths in it.
yeah,
And
we didn't know how to.
I would love for people to just understand that there is a distinctive difference between Amish and Mennonites. While there may be some overlapping cultural norms, as there is with any people group, we're not the same. We're not the same people group. And when you sit there and you tell people that Amish are just disgruntled Mennonites or, some kind of crap like that, you are literally, that's when the fight started. Because I'm sorry. Am I wrong, Rosanna?
No, I remember when that conversation happened. I even pitched in, but I'm like, I'm not going to waste my breath with that guy.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, Amish are not Mennonites. Mennonites are not Amish. Plus, like,
Right.
you also have, for you to get an accurate representation, you'd have to interview every single Amish and Mennonite person to get an accurate representation of each culture. So when you are overgeneralizing, you actually cause harm to people within these groups. And like your identity isn't even Amish. So how does it make you feel when people call you Amish? How did it
It's like we're not Amish. We're not at all Amish. I'm not at all Amish, and there's no similarities because nothing is the same. Um, yeah, for instance, I didn't grow up speaking Dutch as a first language. If you're Amish, you probably did. I didn't grow up with a horse and buggy, to drive it to church or everywhere I go. I didn't grow up with the Amish dress. Our dress is totally distinctive. Um, Even as Easterns with Amish, it's just not at all the same. Um, there is nothing. There is nothing the same except like maybe common history way, way, way back before the Amish broke off.
Before the Mennonites decided they were superior.
Right.
Oh,
Okay,
my
whatever.
bad.
Bang, bang.
It's not like the Amish decided that we were
No,
superior. The
we weren't
Mennonites.
wrong. You were.
No, we were not wrong. You were.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things. I know that there's some Mennonites that do drive horses and buggies, like you mentioned, but there's also a lot of other kinds of Mennonites too. And like you were plain, but you didn't drive a horse and buggy. So it's like people really just don't have enough information. I think that's part of the problem.
And I think they just lump our groups together, like Amish, Mennonite, like we're somehow two different shades of the same thing because they're both cultural groups rather distinctive to Pennsylvania and even Ohio. You know, some of the places where there's a large amount of Amish or Mennonites or whatever, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And we both have our origins in the Reformation.
Yeah, so we both have our origins in the
But that's
Reformation.
how many hundred years ago? 400? 500? 500 at least.
Like that's been ongoing for like hundreds of years. Like this has been an ongoing thing. And then like we the longer the groups have been separate,
it's like calling a Lutheran a Methodist.
Yeah.
It just doesn't equate. Maybe people know more about Lutherans and Methodists than I do, but seriously, it's not like their history doesn't go way back. Well, Lutheran history goes back further than Methodist, but they're not the same thing.
I think that's kind of like part of the problem is like there's not a lot of readily available information that's easily accessible and even comprehensible for people who aren't familiar with the cultural norms. So it makes it more difficult for people to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who this is, but they say looking forward to reading the book. Aww, I do know who that is. Thank you. I can't wait to hear what you think of this final book. It comes out tomorrow. But I think sometimes people really do fill in blanks when they don't have they just don't have a good source.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're filling in blanks, I think it's really beneficial to instead of filling in just allowing like providing something that's accessible and available for people. For me, part of like this activism that I've been doing, I literally just cannot count how much I've tried and tried and tried until I'm blue in the face to like just be like, no, like Mennonites are not Amish, Amish are not Mennonites. There's Amish, there's Mennonites, and then there's also a subgroup called Amish Mennonites, and they incorporate theology and culture from both groups.
They do. It's a little odd.
Yes. And when you understand that, I think sometimes like you understand like maybe if you're coming in contact with people, it might be better to ask people what flavor of plain they are rather than making the assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's my thought process here. Because if you ask people rather than making the assumption, now you're approaching with curiosity rather than making a judgment, if you will.
Right.
So, huh?
was going to say, nobody really has a right to make a judgment about a group that they haven't been closely involved with.
Mm-hmm. So, what are your hopes for this book?
I hope my mom doesn't read it.
Oh, tell me why.
No, because my mom is still pretty strict and Mennonite, and I'm not sure she'll appreciate it. But I don't know. Maybe I'll give her a copy for Christmas along with my other book, and she can pick of which one she likes.
Why do you think she wouldn't appreciate it?
Because I write very honestly, and you did too, about some of the bad things our groups tended to do. Such as playing prisons. The sending people who don't conform, or people who you think are are not mentally okay, to counseling centers to get straightened out. But the counseling centers are not manned by real counselors. No real psychologist or trained
Psychiatrist or
psychiatrist, right?
APNs who
Right.
have prescribing privileges. Like
There's
it's
nothing that's okay about those facilities. It's basically people from groups that are like yours or similar to yours, trying to get you to conform to groupthink, and it does not work. Even if you quote scriptures, it just doesn't work for people who have real issues in their lives.
yeah.
And then they're run in a very authoritarian way, so
Mm.
it doesn't work.
Well, when you require compliance with conformity to remain a member of the group in good standing, they have to
Mhm.
resort to some kind of measure. And unfortunately, that is something that should be discussed, and people within that people group really need to address it.
Mhm.
And I think every time that we talk about it, it places, I hope that it brings a little bit more awareness as to what these centers are,
Mhm.
how they're being run by people who are unqualified to run them, and
Mhm.
how much it harms people to be sent to these facilities.
Right.
I mean,
And,
you don't think that she would be offended by the wives are not doormats chapter?
she's not very much of a doormat. She might agree with me on that one. However,
Oh,
yeah, but I write about things too, like my obsession with, or no, not my obsession, my former church's obsession with dress standards, and like my dislike of the bonnet, the cardboard hats situation, stuff like that. She probably wouldn't appreciate.
the cardboard hats. You mean the
Oh
sin
yeah,
sifters? I mean,
it just doesn't work now, once. Hmm.
let me tell you something. All I gotta say is we had like these beautiful things. Never mind. Never mind. We had these beautiful things that were made the right way, not the Mennonite way. They covered our whole ears, okay? All
Yeah, I
the
hear
way.
you. I'm
I'm
sure.
sorry. I'm
I'm
just
sure
kidding.
they were very comfortable. Mhm.
Wait, I'm gonna call them the sin sifters. They were the sin sifters.
I know they sometimes call those white plastic net coverings that Mennonites wear soup strainers, because they had like these little holes in. Oh man.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So, what about the do we really shun people? Do you think she would be offended by that?
Mom? Mm, she's not pro shunning. Not okay, so seriously, they're a church that my dad used to haul horse and buggy people to the store to work at. So he would leave at 5 in the morning, collect all these women or men or whatever, pick them up in the van and take them to the store, drop them off. Well, their church split due to the normal Mennonite things. I'm just kidding, but like one of the things that they split over was they were one group didn't want them to use like bulldozers and heavy equipment when they're building their houses. they're supposed to do things the more appropriate old-fashioned way. I don't know how they build their houses without heavy equipment. However, another thing they split over was the one group wanted to be able to use English in their church service when there were non-English people coming to the church. So they split. And the one group, the old group, shunned the new group. And suddenly these people didn't want to go to work together in the same vehicle, or they would take pot shots at each other. However, the store manager ended up firing a bunch of them for not getting along, so that kind of took care of that. But I remember my parents going like, "Oh, these people, you know."
Oh, are you saying it was a hostile work environment?
Apparently there was. I mean, that was really pretty good for non-resistant Mennonites, wouldn't you say?
Such wonderful pacifists. Okay. Okay. So, what about like you know when we write about like some of the things like politics? Do,
Oh, that gets kind of hairy. I don't think there's politics and some Mennonites get along very well. However, for politics and me, I don't fit either group because I can't, I have opinions. That one's pretty complex. I don't even remember what I wrote. I should pull it up.
and you don't even remember what you wrote. You started with like the Gulf War. That's what you started with.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I remember that. Okay. So, yeah, that's the first time I heard about Amish voting. And at
Oh,
that time, I don't recall that Mennonites voted much then. It was still frowned upon in the Mennonite church. But that was in the 90s, right? Yeah. It must have been the early 90s or even late 80s because I think I got out of school in 1990. So it would have been like late 80s. And anyway, yeah, when Bill Clinton was president, you know, people were horrified. Oh, we need to vote a conservative, more conservative, nice guy in there. You know, this guy's such a creep. And I'm like, you know what? People are voting about that. You know, I thought all presidents were scumbags. Anyway.
all I can hear is I did not have relations with that woman.
Well, he had issues. That's for sure. I forgot about all that. But yeah,
I'm sorry, not
I
sorry.
was still probably pretty conservative Mennonite at the time, so I didn't listen to the radio.
Well, I was old order Amish, and I didn't listen to the radio either, except when we got in the vehicle in the van, and the van driver took us somewhere.
Oh,
We would hear it there. So I digress. Like then we would hear like I'm just saying. I didn't listen. I wasn't supposed to listen to
yeah.
the radio, but you know, I did watch my old order Amish mother voting in the 90s. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, we didn't vote. It was taught, you know, that was really sinful in our church, you know. However, now there's a lot more Mennonites vote. Probably not Easterns. I'll guarantee you they don't vote anymore yet. And but I'm sure they have opinions and pray for the Lord to do his will.
okay,
Um
okay.
anyway, yeah, Mennonites in politics is really creepy because to me, like I could be called liberal by a lot of people because I don't see, I think that, people need to be kind to other people, including immigrants and everything like that. However, there's Mennonites who would disagree with me and say, "Oh no, you're going liberal. You're way out in left field. You need to repent and get your life back in order." And I guess vote Republican, but I can't do that. I don't vote at all, so whatever. But
Oh my.
it's a really hot topic right now.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what. First time I voted would have been before I voted the first time very shortly after I left the church because by the time I left the church, we were in a settlement where they didn't vote because
How
Amish
old,
have
how
different.
old were you when you left?
I was 19 when I escaped.
Okay. Mhm.
I turned 20 a month and 4 days later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you voted?
So I voted, yes. And I will say this. I feel like it's my civic duty to vote.
Uh-huh. How
Like,
much do you think your Amish background with voting had to do with it?
well,
I mean, you would have always grown up. I had it drummed into me from little on up until I was probably in my 20s, late mid 20s, late 20s that I thought, well, I guess it's okay if some people. No, I was probably in my 30s.
I think there's a different mentality in the Amish groups that voted versus the Amish groups that didn't vote and how they viewed elections and stuff. But I also grew up
Mhm.
hearing stories about how, like during the mid 1900s, there were Amish people, and even the early to the mid 1900s, there were Amish people that served on like school boards and stuff like that. Before Wisconsin versus Yoder, Amish people actually had more engagement with the systems at play, like especially the educational system, because they were like,
Yeah.
oh no, we want to have like input. And
Uh-huh.
so it was like, well, it's our right to have that.
Yeah. Interesting. Because you know what? I think Mennonites did too. Now that you say before Wisconsin versus Yoder. But see,
Uh-huh.
the group that I grew up in didn't leave till the regular rest of the more worldly Mennonite till 1950. So I didn't grow up in that kind of setting with a lot of people that grew up in that kind of setting.
Gotcha. Well, I think it influenced me more to think that maybe it's okay. Like it might have been easier for me to look at it and say that I have a right as an American to have a vote.
Hmm.
I have a right as an American to cast a vote in an election.
Hmm. We should have written about that in the book. It's an
Yeah,
interesting conversation. But
it
yeah,
is very interesting, but we did write about like the voting and stuff, like
yeah,
that's a whole thing that I think sometimes I just I just really think that people don't realize how, like, okay, so technically when we talk about Amish people voting or not voting, there can be a whole mindset that goes behind it.
hmm,
So yeah. And then, do you have any closing thoughts about this book?
to me.
Yeah, you.
Well, I think one of my favorite chapters is a Dirk Willems story. Um, because we hashed that one even before we started writing this book. We hashed that story up and down because we were all so familiar with it. So is the Dirk Willems story fairly popular in the Amish church too? Did you all know about that story,
Well, it's in
or
one
was
of
it
the
more?
pathway readers. I think I wrote
Oh,
about this. Remember,
right.
we wrote about this. Like
Yeah.
it's in one of the pathway readers. It was in our
Mhm.
one of my school books when I went to school. So I think it depends on the flavor of Amish you are, as with everything, because some Amish don't use pathway readers. But the one school that I attended, like they definitely use pathway readers, and I was definitely reading that story in that grade. And
Yeah,
I
I think.
remembered that crap. And I'm like, what in the world? Like,
Well,
oh,
that kind of teaching, first of all, Dirk Willems for little kids is kind of crazy because the guy was, you're getting a child to read a book about a martyr who got burned at the stake, a person that got burned alive that is screams, his screaming while it hurt, obviously, got his executioner to beg for leniency. It's not appropriate for little children to read that type of story unless you want them to not sleep at night. But secondly, the theology that gets taught with that story is that you need to love your enemy to the point of giving up your life, and whether or whoever harms you to the point of giving up your life. And if that kind of theology gets taught to a little kid at, let's say, 10 years old, then what's going to happen when that kid grows up and somebody harms them? Are they going to actually have good boundaries with the other people? Are they going to work on self preservation, or are they going to turn the other cheek? Like be nice to the other guy because that's what Dirk Willems did. We discussed
Because
that in the book.
yes, and the other part is this is like, will they even have the skills to recognize when something is detrimental to their existence? Do they
Mhm.
believe that they are allowed to escape an
Yep.
environment that is perhaps dangerous to their existence, to their
Mhm.
life?
Mhm. And then when you're told when you grow up, if you leave a dangerous environment, it's wrong. You should stay till you die. It's just so not okay.
It teaches people that suffering for Christ is godly and
Mhm.
holy. It is
Martyrdom is
something
the ideal.
it is something that we should be so happy. And I'm saying this because this is literally a sentiment that was expressed to me by multiple Amish people,
Mhm.
and even by my own mother. My mom would say stuff like, "You're you should be so glad you're suffering in this life and not the next one." So I just want you to understand that like sometimes people really do go to extremes, and extremism is not something that we should strive for.
Mhm.
Extremism is something that harms people.
Mhm.
It harms the most marginalized within people groups,
Mhm.
and it makes people suffer.
Mhm.
While that
And
might have been a cute little bedtime story for me, and I might do a little light reading before bed tonight about Dirk Willems, I'm sorry. Please understand my sarcasm here. I had night terrors for many, many years about being burned alive. And part of what I attribute that to is because of the fact that we had the Martyr's Mirror leather bound book that was like 12 inches tall, fully illustrated. And even
Mhm.
before I could read it, I looked at those pictures. I was a very small child looking at these depictions of people being beheaded and people being put to death in various gruesome ways that
Mhm.
really invoke the fear of hell.
Yeah.
I must say, it's quite nice to live without the fear of hell.
Well, it's so wrong. Like that whole martyrdom mindset has crept into, I'm sure, Amish lives as well as Mennonites. And it's bound within our cultural people group that that and I believe it's historical trauma that goes way back to the 400, 500 years when people did flee for their lives from those countries. But what
Hmm.
we forget is that they fled, and our ancestors now, or even our recent ancestors, our parents and our grandparents, need to think about the fact that we don't have to worry about martyrdom, and we should not ever pass down a culture of fear to our children simply because our ancestors were persecuted, 400, 500 years ago. It's just wrong.
What is a persecution complex after all?
That's what it is. Oh, my children might not turn out right. I've got to make sure that they're scared enough that they stay within the faith, and
Yeah,
um, that type of thing. Or
it's
I
just,
don't trust anybody outside the culture.
oh, that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I would say I don't know about you, Rosanna, but I cried and I laughed as we wrote this book, and I think that I hope that for me, I hope that everybody who reads this book can find something to cry and laugh about with us. That's my whole wish.
I agree.
Yeah. Any other parting thoughts?
Nope.
Ooh, Rebecca says someone needs to study the Martyr's Mirror as a horror genre. Please.
That's the next project, Rebecca.
No, no. I actually have another project, not that one.
Well,
Not
I
yet.
said Rebecca.
That can be your project, Rebecca. That's right. Anyways, thank you, Rosanna, for being our guest. Thank you for co writing this book.
Well, thank
I
you
want to
for
give a
the
shout out to Rebecca Moy for writing the introduction to this book. I think it's pretty golden. And I am so interested to see what y'all have to say after you read this book. As always, thank you for listening and engaging with this content, and like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Reminder, this is produced by the Misfit Amish, and our Patreon supporters. Art used in this production is by MB and BJK. Until next time, live your best lives.